welcome to the show. Today we have a very special guest, Amelia Earhart's little sister Muriel. We will be discussing the life and disappearance of her sister Amelia. Come on out, Muriel. Hello, Now before we discuss the tragic disappearance of your sister Amelia, let's talk about your childhood. Were you and Amelia close growing up?
Well, yes, very close actually. We saw each other during summers though, because Amelia stayed with her grandparents. But when she arrived, we would spend plenty of time together with our father, fishing, and we also played many games, usually meant for boys.
Wow, sounds like you guys were little tomboys, so how early did Amelia seem to be interested in airplanes?
Well, as you know, she's always been interested in all types of games, but one thing that really inspired her to start flying was the feeling of flight of horseback riding. It made her become more interested in taking flight in an actual plane. Another thing I remember was when we used to watch the airplanes take off at Canada Flying School, which also inspired her.
How did she plan on pursuing this dream of hers?
Well, it definitely wasn't easy. She pretty much tried everything, like getting permission from professional pilots, but they rejected her and said flying wasn't the ideal job for a woman. Then she dropped out of her college in New York and moved to California. She began attending air meets and suddenly was able to take her first flight.
Wow, it sounds like she was very motivated in pursuing her flying career. Did she get inspiration while on her journey?
Yes, she did. She was very inspired by Charles Lindbergh being the first person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow, that sounds interesting. It must have been a long flight. Did she receive any opportunities like Lindbergh did?
Yes, soon. After some hard work with professional flyers, she began to become a professional herself. She was offered to be the first woman to fly across the Atlantic. So then, of course, she took this opportunity and became the captain.
Wow, that sounds like a major accomplishment. Why did she later decide to take a trip around the world?
Well, she's always dreamed big with great accomplishments as a flyer. She wanted to make an unforgettable, nearly impossible journey and make it possible.
How did she plan on making this flight?
Well, she planned on flying across the entire equator and also wanted to change public views and record-breaking flights.
How did she plan on making stops around the world for maintenance?
She made arrangements on different points of the equator and sent out supplies to those locations. One struggle she had, though, was making it through the Pacific Ocean. So she planned on landing on Howland Island.
How did this flight end up going terribly wrong?
Well, her and her flying assistant, Fred, set out for Howland Island, and being such a tiny island, they couldn't quite find it. I was told simply, got lost in the air.
Wow, how horrifying. That must have been devastating.
Yes, of course. But this tragic event showed the world how dedicated she was and encouraged them to follow their own dreams.
Yes, very true. Well, thank you for sharing this with us, but I believe we are about out of time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.